Around 40% of the world population has an internet connection today. In 1995, it was less than 1%. Information overload is a term used to describe the situation where an individual or organization is inundated with an excessive amount of information that they are unable to process or manage effectively. The video you just saw is part of a common trend where creators on TikTok are starting to bring awareness about the constant overstimulation of information in today's society. Most of the comments in videos such as this describe feelings of despair, including saying, "All we can really do is exist and move on." I don't know, that is how I deal with all of it and eventually forget about it. Or phrases like, "I love frying my dopamine receptors." The term can be applied to any situation where there's too much information to handle, whether it is in the workplace, an academic setting, or someone's personal life. In Chapter 1 of his book, Knowledge Overload by David Weinberger, he states information overload isn't what it used to be. He states that Alvin Toffler introduced the idea of information overload to the general public in 1970, where he explains information overload as a follow-on to sensory overload. He gives an example of a Grateful Dead concert, where the light show with the mixed scents of thousands of sticks of incense can cause our brains to get confused, causing a blurring of the line between illusion and reality. He then goes on to say, but what happens when we go from a level up from this mere sensation and our poor little brains are buffeted by information? He speaks on how too much information can hurt our ability to think. The rise of technology and the internet has contributed significantly to the problem of information overload. The article, "Is Information Overload Hurting Our Mental Health?" by Sarah Gorman and Jack M. Gorman states that unsurprisingly, given the severe nature of the threat of COVID-19 and the economic downturn we are facing, experts are now predicting that the epidemic will be an epidemic of mental illness and suicide across the nation. There are urgent calls to deal with the potential uptick in suicides, and nearly half of Americans are saying that their mental health has already been affected by the crises. With the vast amount of information available online, it can be challenging to determine which sources are reliable and which are not, making the whirlwind of chaos in our world even more overstimulating and harder to dissect the truth from delusion and false information on social media cycles and 24-hour news cycles. Some examples that most of society is experiencing today are decreased productivity, increased stress and anxiety, impaired decision-making, polarization, and loss of privacy. According to classmates, decreased productivity and increased stress levels seem to be the most catastrophic events of a constant influx of information.
Hi, my name is Claire, and I'm a friend of Kate's. My experience with information overload can probably be traced back to social media. As a sophomore in college, I'm very familiar with the various types of social media and the abundance of information that's presented to me each day. As I reflect on how this abundance of information has impacted my life, I can narrow it down to two main changes. The first change being a decrease in productivity. With so much accessibility on my phone to check in on my friends or waste time or procrastinate, I tend to see a decrease in productivity. Unfortunately, this means that I usually get a little bit behind on my schoolwork, which causes my second change, which has been an increase in anxiety and stress. Unfortunately, because I'm being less productive, I'm a little bit behind on my schoolwork, which causes me to feel a little bit more anxiety than usual. I also think that this anxiety can be credited due to an increase in worry about what my friends are doing or things that I'm missing out on my phone.
To combat information overload, it is essential to establish effective information management practices, such as prioritizing information sources, setting limits on screen time, and taking breaks to rest and recharge. Additionally, individuals can consider using tools such as filterizing and categorizing information, creating schedules, and setting goals to help manage the flow of information. In How to Teach Information Literacy in an Era of Lies, David Gublar states that the best way to combat information overload and find truth in the chaotic world of information is to reach out to experts that have been dealing with a wide influx of information for a long time. He states that it is also important to focus more on the claims made and less on the source itself. The reason for this is because often it is important to find where the information is coming from in the day of widespread lies and invalidate the validity of the information itself. Despite the influx of information deeply affecting many in today's society, and despite the fact that many feel stuck in a constant loop of despair, caught up in the perils of everyone else's problems everywhere in the world, people are beginning to open their eyes and realize that the news, social media, or random blog posts don't rule their lives, and the way out is to focus on the good and the real human emotion and connection that is everywhere around us. And together we can decipher the truth and the chaos.
My golden boy, you got your wish.